Hello everybody, it is May 22nd, 2025 here in the United States of America. Taking a week off, but I'm back. My daughter was born on Friday and she is happy and healthy and everyone's doing well. But back now, so let's get to the normal routine of making some videos. Typically I make them every Wednesday and Saturday, but I was a little bit busy yesterday, so I'm going to make up for it today. Anyways, what I did want to talk about is the apparent rightward turn of the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, Keir Starmer, and why he's seemingly made a right turn on, specifically on the subject of immigration, and if I think this is a viable political strategy for him and the Labour Party. So it would appear that the Reform Party, led by Nigel Farage, is poised to dominate in future elections in the UK. They're doing fairly well in the polling, to the point where Labour, because they know they're hemorrhaging voters to reform, and so are the Conservatives, are looking to remedy that by catering to their constituents on one of the main issues that Labour is seen to be very weak on, and that is immigration. Typically, Labour has been a fairly unpopular open borders policy. Over in the United Kingdom, just as a little bit of background here, and anybody that's watching this that lives in the UK could probably attest to this, but mass immigration has been a pretty substantial issue across Europe, and especially in Great Britain, considering the United Kingdom is an island nation, well, a collection of nations in a union led by England. But it's still an island nonetheless. They have limited space and limited resources, and voters in the United Kingdom have become increasingly unhappy with the massive influx of immigrants specifically from the Middle East and North Africa. There's been a fair amount of cultural tension and religious tension, as well as an issue involving Pakistani men and organized groups taking advantage of young native-born British girls. This is something that's been happening for decades now, and it's finally come to a head in the last few years, where the existence of this issue has now been acknowledged by a fairly wide segment of the British population, to the point where this really can't be excused and swept under the rug any longer. Now, because of this and general incompetence, both the Tories and Labour have been floundering in the polls. Now, if anyone's familiar with the position of the British Prime Minister, it's been almost like it's out of musical chairs in the last few years. You have Liz Truss, you have Boris Johnson, Rishi Sunak, and now you have Keir Starmer. And it appears that the next Prime Minister will probably be Nigel Farage. Now, if he's in that position for longer than a year or two, we'll see, but Keir Starmer appears to be the next Prime Minister who's in the hot seat. Now, Keir Starmer, at heart, is a globalist. He's in favor of open borders. He's just like the rest of his Western European peers. He appears to be in favor of the wider neoliberal, modernist, globalist agenda. And that is what he has championed up until recently. Immigration wasn't really something that, or limiting immigration isn't something he was speaking about up until recently. And the reason being is Labour is looking at the polls and seeing that a fairly large percentage of the British population is unhappy. There is a powder keg of unrest boiling beneath the surface. Now, make no mistake, if Labor could get away with continuing the policies they have been instituting for quite some time now, they would get away with it. But because they're afraid of getting absolutely obliterated in future elections, they are now taking a more central right-leaning position on immigration to try to pull voters away from the Reform Party. Now, is this a strategy that's going to work for Keir Starmer? I don't think so. See, here's the issue. Somebody like Keir Starmer, while he is, and this is my honest opinion of the man, while he is an idealist, while he does want a world without borders, where cultures and different ethnicities can all mix together as one and have some kind of weird, fluid British identity that has no real connection to their own past. He's in favor of very, very far left social policies when it comes to gender. He is taking a very authoritarian position on free speech. He's nicknamed two-tier Keir for a reason, because there does seem to be a double standard in the UK with who gets prosecuted for hate speech and who doesn't. Make no mistake, Keir Starmer is just like any other Western European globalist. He is not hawkish, to say, on immigration. The issue with Keir Starmer is, though, he is, well, like I'm mentioning here, an ideologue, an idealist. He's also a coward. And making a move like this, it's kind of a lose-lose for somebody like Keir Starmer. Reason being is everyone knows what his actual positions on these things are, and that the only reason he is talking about limiting immigration and tightening security in the channel is because he's looking at his poll numbers. This is about political survival. He doesn't actually believe any of these things. If he could get away with having an open border, he absolutely would. Like, he doesn't believe in limiting immigration out of principle. He's only wishing now to limit it because it is having negative political consequences for him and his party. So the issue is when he makes a sudden U-turn like this, while still a member of Labour, nobody takes it seriously. They look at it as him just being a political opportunist and a coward. He doesn't even have enough of a spine to stick with his own positions. Again, this is just about political survival. So is this sudden change in policy enough to sway public opinion back towards Labour? I would say no. Much like in the United States, a great deal of the population of the United Kingdom has been fed up now for years with the establishment parties. Tory and Labour have seemingly traded back and forth with losing and winning elections. One party gets voted into power, they prove to be completely incompetent. People swing back towards Labour. Labour gets in again, proves to be just as incompetent as the Tories, and so on and so forth, and people are frankly tired of it. Now that UKIP is defunct, the Reform Party seems to be the only viable option other than these two. And, well, the Tories and Labour have no one to blame but themselves because of their failed policies. The Tories are seen to be conservatives with no backbone that aren't really conserving anything at all. And the Labour is seen to be so far left and progressive at this point that many of the things they're advocating for are so unpopular with the general public in the United Kingdom that if they do keep pushing forward with these policies, I believe there's a real threat of eventual civil unrest, if not outright, an outright complete political breakdown in the United Kingdom. Mass unrest, rebellions, and riots. You can only push a people so far before they finally break. And I think the leadership of Labour is looking at the polls and realizing that they're heading in that direction. But again, specifically on immigration, they're abandoning these policies not out of principle, but because of they're more concerned with their own political survival than anything else. As I mentioned before, if Keir Starmer could continue on with an open borders policy, they would gladly do so. This is interesting too. One of the core reasons for this policy of mass migration is economics. Well, Keir Starmer, again, he is an idealist, and they do believe in having open borders, but they also want workers. They need people in the factories and the shops and the stores, and if the native British aren't having enough children, well, they can simply import new people, because to them, people are just a exchangeable commodity, I guess. I mean, you can just move people from one planet of the area to another, like, move them into another country. Say you take people from Pakistan, you move them to England, and then you can just say, well, they're English if they've been there long enough. Well, that's not necessarily true. That's not how that works. Like, there's something a bit more about national identity than simply just living in a certain geographical location. It comes down to history, language, cultural attitudes, religion. Me, for example, me being an American Orthodox Christian, Scottish and German descent, I mean, if you just picked me up and put me in Russia, for example, despite the fact that, yes, I am an Orthodox Christian, would I be a Russian at that point? No, I don't speak Russian. I would have to acquiesce to Russian cultural norms. I would have to learn the language and generally abandon my own identity and conform to theirs. And then maybe my children would be viewed as Russian. When you move to another country and you want to be a member of that culture, you have to assimilate. You have to culturally become those people, or you can't say you are those people. The ethnicity might not matter as much in some places, like the United States. You can be someone of non-Western European descent and still be considered an American, but you have to acquiesce to American cultural norms, standards, and values over time. It takes a while. You can't just do it overnight. So again, like, you can't just move, somebody from a completely cultural distinct region of the world and move them to another, put them to work, and say, okay, you're British now. It doesn't work. Now, Labour believes in that because, again, like they believe in, like, the new man, that you can just kind of move people around on a spreadsheet and then just call them whatever geographical location they're living in. They're those people now because they're living there, I guess, despite the fact that there's some pretty serious and deep cultural and religious divides that take place when this happens. This is what the people in Labour, people like Keir Starmer, would prefer to do. And because it's backfiring on them at the polls, they're not looking at this as, oh, well, something's just wrong with our ideas, we shouldn't do it. It's, oh, well, the people need convincing. We need to take a step back, acquiesce to their wishes to survive politically, and then later on, when they get a more friendly generation as voters and constituents, then they can try again. So, no, I don't think Keir Starmer's strategy is going to work. I think most people will see through it. It would appear to me that the future politically in the United Kingdom, at least on the conservative spectrum of things, is going to be reform, and Nigel Farage will likely be the next prime minister. Now, will he be in that spot for very long? I'm not sure. Now, another thing, too, I want to mention about Keir Starmer is so these people look at their constituents kind of like they're easily programmable cogs in a machine, and frankly kind of stupid. He makes a sudden right turn towards a more conservative immigration policy, and I think they expect people to go, oh, cool, we'll vote for you now. He comes out as militaristic and tough when talking about Russia because they think it invokes Churchill, and Churchill's popular, so if I just act like Churchill, people will vote for me, and they'll look at me as if I'm tough and I'm standing strong in the face of tyranny. No, like the average person isn't going to be swayed or fooled by that. Again, it makes these people look spineless, weak, conniving, and scheming, and that's really all it does. So I think he would probably be better off if he just continued on with what he actually believes. Because again, making this concession towards the Conservative Party out of the blue just for his own political survival is not going to win him any points with the people that already don't like him or his party. But anywho, that's all I wanted to talk about today. I'll be back Saturday with another video. I want to touch upon the things that are happening between Russia and Ukraine in regards to the recent seemingly failed negotiations in Istanbul, and the phone conversation between Trump and Putin, and what I think is going to happen in the next few months based upon these recent events and what the leaders of Russia, Ukraine, and the United States should do in their current position to get the best possible outcome politically for their respective nations. But anyways, I hope everyone out there has a great day, and until next time.